Hi and welcome to the Yarnacopia podcast. My name's Erica and I'm a neurodivergent knitter here from Sydney, and this is episode 1. We're going to do a traditional format today for this podcast. I'm going to talk about my finished objects that I'm wearing, and then I'm going to talk about a few of my works in progress, some acquisitions from the Australian Yarn Show in Canberra last weekend, and my plans for the next month or so. So let's get started. My first finished object to be featured on my podcast is this Lia Cardigan that I made. This was yarn gifted to me and the pattern from Sandnes Garn, and I made a couple of modifications. The yarn that I got to make this was Sunday in blue and Tin Silk Mohair in Jolly Blue. Now, that was a modification in and of itself. The pattern calls for double Sunday, but I was able to get gauge, which I was pretty confident about to start with. But I also made one other modification, and that was I extended the sleeves. So as you can see, I've got a nice wide long sleeve, whereas the pattern itself, as you'll see on the cover here, is a shorter sleeve, just to elbow length. Whereas I didn't want an elbow length cardigan. I didn't see how that would work in my wardrobe. So I just kept going. I didn't do any extra decreases, and then I bound off in pattern with a bigger needle. I think I went up to a 5 or 6 millimeter needle after doing a bit of the ribbing in the same needle that I did the stockinette. So I really did err on the side of caution with this one. Didn't do anything with smaller needles or the like for the sleeves, because I wanted to have the sleeves as flat and as, sharp, I guess you could say, on the end, on the bind off as possible. I didn't want any kind of cinching or anything like that. The yarn I used was a modification too, as I mentioned. The thing I want to mention is that there is a bit of opinion out there that the Tin Silk Mohair can be quite itchy, and as someone with sensory issues, I'd say leaning towards significant sensory issues, I agree it can be itchy. However, I am wearing this with only a singlet underneath, and it's not bothering me at all. And that is because I got this great tip from Tash from Handmade Creates, and that is to block your Tin Silk Mohair or any silk mohair with a couple of drops of hair conditioner. And so that's what I did. I used a strucket, so I filled my strucket with, warm water, put my eucalyptus in, just a good drop, and then a couple of squirts of hair conditioner. And I didn't rinse it out. I let it all kind of macerate until the water went cold, and I just, squeezed the water out as I would normally. And that has left a really pleasant but unnoticeable coating on the silk mohair. And that's basically what we do when we wash our hair with hair conditioner. We're coating the cuticle to make the hair smooth again. So that's what I've done, and I'm really happy with the results. I was one of those people who thought that silk mohair would never be something I could work with or I could wear, and a lot of my early knitting was with alpaca fluff, but to be able to include silk mohair into my wardrobe and into my knitting repertoire has been a really welcome addition, because I really like the glow that you get from the silk. This jumper, it's cardigan when I wear it in the sun, which I've only done once, but it glows and it just adds to the joy of this. The only thing I would say is that I need to fix this top button. It's just a little bit off kilter. Other than that, I'm really happy with how it knitted up. The Sandnes Garn patterns can be a bit tricky to follow. We'll be providing support on the Yarnacopia Facebook group for patterns. There's a few of us who will be in that group who are familiar with Sandnes Garn patterns, and I'm more than happy to kind of share how to make sense of them. I do know that Sandnes Garn is looking into how to make them more accessible as far as English language translation options. So that's great because I feel like their patterns are just phenomenal. They're really, really nice, and I know they put a lot of work into them. So, you know, to have them lost in translation and made really difficult for a significant part of their demographic is unfortunate. I'm really happy with the buttons. I got them from a charity shop that we have here in Sydney. I think there's a few of them called the Sewing Basket, and they raise funds for helping to get disabled people into work and to support them in work, which I think is a cause I can definitely get behind as a disabled person myself. So I saw these buttons and I picked them up, and I suspected they would work well, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't have the cardigan with me. But I just think they're perfect for the look that I was going for. And yeah, it's going to be a staple in my wardrobe for this winter. And I'm really, really happy, and I'm really thrilled with it. And you won't hear me say that much about my knits for some reason, but this one I am. The way that this is done, I might just run through it really quickly, is a European shoulder. So you form the shoulders first, do the fronts, then pick up on the back, and then join and knit the body, and then pick up the sleeves. It's a pretty straightforward way of doing things once you've kind of got your head around it. And I really like the effect that the European shoulder gives with that line at the back. I think it's just, you'll see a lot of patterns on Ravelry where they've actually embellished that with cables or whatever, that line there, and it looks really, really lovely. So it was my first time doing a European shoulder that way, and yeah, I found once I got past the cast on and the initial 2 rows, to be honest, I found it pretty straightforward. But the way that the pattern had been translated in those first couple of lines was just so confusing. I had to call a friend and ask for some help. And luckily she was really experienced and able to kind of sort that out for me in a couple of minutes, whereas I think I tried 5 or 6 times and spent quite a few hours trying to work it out. But we got there in the end, and we now have this beautiful Lia cardigan from Sandnes Garn DIY collection to show for it. Kits for this will be available on the Yarnacopia website for the April Sandnes Garn pre-order. Yeah, so you can see here, this is the singlet that I was wearing under the bare neck, bare arms, and I didn't have any problems. So that's unusual for me, but very welcome. My next work in progress is another yarn that was gifted to me, but this is for the May pre-order, and that is from Carded Cashmere. I can't tell you how excited I am to be able to offer Carded Cashmere. We're offering the whole range, same as for Sandnes Garn. We've been able to organise with the manufacturer that whatever they've got available is available for us to purchase. So I wanted to do something with one of their other yarns besides the classic. So I asked for the Brush Light, which I thought would be a really nice yarn for a Sydney winter, autumn winter. It is 82% cashmere and 18% silk, and so that silk is holding the cashmere in on the silk core. I am knitting the Micaela sweater by Moreca Knit, and this pattern calls for brush light, so that was great. And you can see here that I have finished the body, and I have picked up and done the short rows of the sleeve. As you can see, it's a saddle short shoulder construction, and the short rows bring out the sleeve. And of course, I still have one to go. I've done the neckline as well, because I feel it's really important to do the neckline before you finish the body, so you can see how it's all fitting, because your garment can tend to look longer than it actually is when it's got a slack neckline or a raw neckline. So I always make sure I do the necklines first, and then I'll try and do at least a part of the sleeve so I can see how the shoulder's sitting before I decide on what I'm going to do with the body. Now, this has been sitting in my naughty corner for a little while. I should have stuck to my gut feeling and done what I knew was right, or right for me. Now, the pattern calls for an Italian sewn bind off, which just seems to be the flavour of the month for everything at the moment. And there are situations where it looks phenomenal, and I totally am down for that. But there are situations where it's just really impractical. And I feel for the Micaela sweater, this is one of those situations where it's really impractical. First of all, I really don't think that an Italian sewn bind off is appropriate for a yarn that has a core holding its fibres. The reason for that is that when you're going through the loops constantly, you're stripping those fibres off the core every time it's going through the loops. So by the time you get to the end, if you get to the end, you have a really ratty core and very little fibre, if any at all, still on that yarn. The second thing is that when you have a solid non-stretchy, non-wool, basically a non-animal fibre core, you've got absolutely no stretch in that. That's just what it is. So when you do an Italian sewn bind off, that also has no stretch in it, no flex in the bind off, which when you're trying to get a sweater on and off is really awkward. I'm at the point where I feel like every time I try to put this on and off, if I'm not super duper careful, I could just snap that ribbing bind off, that Italian sewn bind off, and not even notice, perhaps, because I don't notice things. Like I could whack into something and then a week later have a bruise and be like, oh, where did that come from? So with those two things in mind, what's my plan of action? Well, I'm going to cut the bind off because, like, I don't have the patience to undo an Italian sewn bind off with this kind of yarn. I might do it with like something like a double Sunday or, you know, a slippery sock or something, but I'm definitely not going to do it with this yarn. So I'm going to cut the bind off. I'm going to join in the yarn, probably on the side where it's not too obvious. I'm going to do a bit more rib than what the pattern calls for, and now I'm going to bind off in pattern, just like I did with my Lia cardigan, with a couple of with a needle that's a few millimeters bigger than what is called for. I find that the rib is even when I do that too. I don't like how single rib can kind of look a bit janky when you bind off in the needle that you've done the rib, because there's no space in those stitches that you're binding off to even themselves out, so you kind of cinch in, which makes it look really uneven. But that's what the plan is for this. Other than the bind off on the body, I'm really quite happy with how it's going. It's got a little bit of the armpit comes up to here, which is all right. I did want this to have a bit of slack in it. I wanted to be able to wear it to work, so being able to, you know, put a singlet under it and for modesty is nice, but it's, you know, breathable and warm and light. And I think I chose a colour that is quite neutral and professional. So yeah, overall I'm really quite happy with it. Once I get past this reminder of I doubted myself. I don't like to doubt myself when it comes to things that I know better. But then you always trust a pattern, don't you? You kind of always trust that the designer knows best. But I'm not too sure after this. But, you know, Moreca Knit's got a really good selection of patterns. They're really popular. I know String Things by Mel has made a couple of her pool cardigans and they look phenomenal. Ailsa from Real Wool People's made the pool jumper, looks great. So, you know, the patterns wouldn't be getting traction if they were rubbish. So I'm going to chalk this up to a learning experience. And yeah, basically this is not a pattern fault, but this is a preference. And yeah, just maybe something to be mindful of. Like the surprisingly stretchy bind off would be a good idea here too. But I just don't think the Italian sewn bind off is a great idea here. So you wouldn't believe it. As I was taking this off, I heard a few snaps. So, yeah. My next work in progress is one that I've been working on since last week. To be honest, I haven't been working on it since last week. I started it last week and left it in last week. And that is the Wise Hilda basic sock by Atherley that I'm making for my husband. This was my cast on for the trip to Canberra for the yarn show. I did probably half of the cuff in one sitting. We left really early, so I fell asleep. And then I did the other half just as I was walking around Canberra with my friend and doing whatever. So this is a regular yarn. It is from Super Stash. And when I say Super Stash, it was from stash that was under the house for the last 11 years from stash that I bought 10 years prior to that. And, you know, at the time, I think I thought this yarn, when I looked at it, was probably a bit rough for me. Didn't have a husband at the time. But my husband pulled out the box the other day. I think he was trying to get to something else. And I had a quick poke around and I saw this and felt it and I thought, oh, this might actually be the yarn for my husband to finally get a pair of socks from me, because this is probably my 4th attempt to make him a pair of socks. He's got unusual feet. Well, I say they're unusual, but it's just because they're different to mine. He's got a narrow ankle and a wide instep, and I call them paddles or flippers. They're like really broad feet. So your stock standard socks don't really seem to fit all that well. So we're going to give this a go. This was recommended to me by Tegan, my yarn bestie, who's made a lot of socks for her husband. And the pattern was recommended to her by Leslie, who's made even more socks, like hundreds of socks. So, you know, that's a pattern I can give a good, you know, attempt to when it comes with that kind of recommendation. So we'll see how we go with that. It came in one ball, so I've split it into two 50-gram balls or 60-gram balls. I think the regular is slightly bigger than 100 grams. So I'm hoping this will mean that I get 2 socks that are roughly the same with minimal waste. I don't really like having leftovers for things like socks, because it just makes me think when my ankles or whatever get cold or my shins get cold, I could have just added a few centimeters or whatever and my legs wouldn't be cold right now. But yeah, and you may also notice I have got socks on them. I just make yarn cozies out of cheap socks that are on sale from Kmart or Target, and I just give them a cut. So this is the toe to heel section, and then for the cuff, I just use those for other yarns or whatever I need, basically. So I've got a bit of a collection going. What I love about this whole system is that it keeps the yarn clean and it keeps it compressed, because I center pull. I center pull for everything. So this is a great way to stop the yarn from getting knots in it. So what I'll do is I'll get the ball and I'll cake it, prefer basically for my ease to rewind it if it's a hank or a skein to a ball, to a cake, or even a ball to a cake. Doesn't take long, and then it's just smooth sailing. I've rarely had any kind of knotting or pulling problems after doing that, but I do have a lot of problems generally trying to center pull from balls of yarn that haven't been recaked. I don't have any problems, and so that's just one little thing that I do in my process, my knitting process, that makes it easier for me. Next work in progress is one that I haven't looked at for a while, and I wanted to show it to you in an attempt to kind of motivate me to get it finished. I've made the Anker summer shirt and I really liked it. I loved the way that it came out in the Luca that I used, which is a 47% cotton, 53% merino wool. I wanted to make another one, but not exactly the same. So I thought I would have a look and see what Petiteknit has. And what really struck me was her Sunday pattern. And she's got it in the Sunday Mohair for a sweater. And I just so happened to have that pattern because a long time ago I liked it and I thought I might make it out of alpaca fluff, but I never got around to it. But when I was looking at the sweater pattern, I realized that the counts were the same. So what I thought I would do is I would make a Sunday summer shirt. Basically modify the pattern. So I would blend the Anker summer shirt and the Sunday Mohair sweater into one. And this is where I've got so far. So this is the circular yoke. I've finished the ribbing and I'm just working on the stockinette now. And something that will probably become obvious as we get to know each other better over the coming podcasts is that I love yokes and I will often finish a project somewhere after the yoke but before the project is finished. So I have put this aside thinking, well, I wanted to do it for summer and I wanted to be able to wear it for summer, and other things got more interesting and I was just chasing the dopamine and this got put aside. I'm also a little unsure about how it's going to look, although I have been knitting long enough now to know just keep the faith until the end and it's not over till it's blocked. But yeah, I think I really should make more of an effort to finish this. I did put short rows in the back as well myself and to kind of give it a bit more shape, and the neck. I did this phenomenal workshop with Tash from Mostly Knitting at Skein Sisters a while ago. Her short row course is so good. I mean, I went from being scared of short rows to now putting short rows in everything with confidence after that 3 or 4 hour workshop. And I've done it with the Anker shirt, I've done it with this, I've done it with a whole host of garments that I've made. And if a pattern doesn't have short rows, I have two thoughts. One, why didn't the designer put them in? But two, can I put them in myself? So yeah, I just think short rows are essential for fit. But it's one of those things that, like, once you've just had the instruction and you've been shown how to do it and you've had your technique corrected in the right way, it's just ingrained. And so now short rows and me, we're best friends. So that is my work in progress there. I will, you know what, I'm not going to promise to have it done anytime soon, but let's aim to have it done by this time late spring rolls around. So maybe October, November. I could probably commit to that. My last work in progress that I want to talk about is my Frida headband. Now, this is another recent cast on, I think 2 or 3 days ago. I'm making this with, for Olive, Purple Unicorn, I think it's called, or Unicorn Purple, held with accretion disc alpaca fluff from Maximoo Yarns from Melbourne or Mornington Peninsula. I finally got to see some Maximoo yarn in person at the yarn show and I was thrilled. Tegan and I ended up buying 4 or 5 skeins between us. I bought this fluff specifically to make a headband. I struggle with compression on my head, which makes beanies really hard for me. Also, headphones, funnily enough. I don't know, I can't explain it. So I've made a Frida headband before. I should have brought it down. I made it out of scraps that I had. And it was slightly narrower. It was probably that narrow. The pattern calls for 40 stitches on 4mm, but for me, because it's double knitted, it compresses quite a bit. I wanted to have a headband that I could wear that, even though it would slide back on my head slightly as I was wearing it, it would still keep my ears covered, because my ears start to hurt when they get cold, just like my hands, funnily enough. So that's what I'm making. I'm making this. The pattern is free and it's on Ravelry. It's called the Frida headband by Emilie. I'll put it below or on the screen. One thing you'll know about me is I'm not great with remembering details, but it is so soft. Like, I would say is just short of cashmere soft, and I'm really looking forward to having this in winter so I can cover my ears and my forehead and be warm and cozy without being in pain, which is always nice. The pattern calls for 40 stitches and I've put on 50 here, and I'm working at I would say at an 8, like a DK gauge. I haven't checked the gauge. I don't think it's really relevant. I'm just happy with how it's looking. I love how the colours are dappling from the fluff on the fairly neutral unicorn purple base, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. So this has been 1, 2, 3 days work. So last night, night before, and the day before that. And yeah, it's a really simple double knit in the flat. So it's literally just knit your knits and slip your pearls with the yarn in front, both sides. And it creates this really lovely double fabric. You've got double thickness. And yeah, I really love that pattern. I'm really grateful to the designer putting it out for free. The way this will work in the end is that you just join the 2 pieces of fabric in like that and just sew them and then turn them inside out and you'll get like a knot detail. So yeah, hopefully I will have this done by the next time we meet, because I am doing a lot of mindless knitting at the moment. So I imagine it will be done by the time we meet, but you never know. Things could get more interesting. Things could start happening. I do have a lot of knitting to do for various things, so who knows. So that is the Frida headband. So I think we're up to acquisitions now. I had so much fun at the yarn show. I am so glad that I went despite my leg hurting. I fell a week earlier and smashed my knee and my foot. It's okay, it's getting better, but it hurt a lot at the time. But I needed the dopamine and the excitement to kind of brighten myself and my week up. So I was really happy to be able to go to the yarn show, and Tegan and I had organised to go with our families and brought the dogs, and it was just really fun. We only stayed for one night. We went down on the Friday and came back on the Saturday afternoon, and that was long enough to really, enjoy but not overstay. I like to be home, so for me to do something like that is, a little out of character, I guess, but I kind of wanted to push myself because I really want to integrate into the community, the knitting community here in Australia, and make some new friends and, just be surrounded by people that are like-minded and enjoy the same things I do. So I want to show you some of my acquisitions. I think I should show you my other Maximoo yarn that I got. I got another alpaca fluff, and this is called Electric Dream. Now, how insanely awesome is that? I am so looking forward to knitting this up in a similar fashion to what I've done with the Frida headband. I think the colours are just going to absolutely scream, and I can't wait for that. The blue here matches the blue from my Lia cardigan, so I just think this is a really good combo. And then I also have a pair of shoes that are quite similar to this purple, the new Rolly shoes that are out. I got a pair because my sneakers that I had for 8 years were dead. So yeah, when I saw this, I was so excited, and I was just like, I have to, and I'm so glad I did. So that's the Maximoo Electric Blue in baby alpaca fluff, and yeah, so excited about this one. The dopamine's just going bing, 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 bing. The next thing I got was just one lonely skein from Skip Rope, and this is called True Teal in So Twisted, and it's 100% superwash merino. I am on a green kick, and I am finding it really hard to find a green that ticks all the boxes. I can think of plenty of one skein projects that I can do with 350 meters of heavy sock weight. It will more than likely be a shawl or a scarf of some sort. I think it really suits me, and I like the colour. I'm not sure where the teal came from. Maybe this was like an off batch, because it definitely doesn't look teal to me. It looks very green. But what would I know? I'm not a colour expert. So yeah, I'm just thrilled that I got it, and it's now part of my stash. I don't normally go for fancy stitch markers. I find that they can be quite heavy. I got these from Obsession Yarns. I don't know if you can see them. For me, with my fibromyalgia, I try to make my knitting as light as possible, because the heavier it gets, the more tired my arms get, and the less I can knit. But I saw these and I was just like, I could probably make that sacrifice to enjoy these markers. The green was the theme, it would seem. Green was the theme, it would seem. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. I come from Irish stock. I'm really Irish. I've got an Irish passport. That's how Irish I am. So when I saw the 4-leaf clovers, it came in a pack of 4, and I just thought, yeah, I definitely have to get those. And Tegan saw the peas and the eggplant, and of course, we all know the joke with the eggplant, but the peas were nice too. So I bought these and I split the pack of the clovers, and I bought 2 of the eggplant and the peas. Gave 1 to Tegan and gave her 2 of the clovers. And yeah, it was just, we had said we wanted to get some fancy stitch markers because we both just use light bulb markers at the moment. And yeah, these, I'm always going to remember these as being when I was with Tegan at the yarn show in Canberra. They're really fun and pretty, you know, just anything to kind of get the dopamine going, I'm there for it, really. There was a stall that was selling all sorts of yarns, but they had these shawl clips. They had all sorts of various shawl clips. And Tegan and I, we got one the same each, so we can be matchy-matchy. I love shawls. I knit quite a few of them. But yeah, we both saw this and we could only find one that actually held the clip in, because that clip comes out. And we didn't want one that would, you know, fall out all the time. But after the stall holder gave us permission to mix and match and work it all out, we walked away with 2 matching shawl pins. And yeah, really excited again with the Irish theme. So we've got the green yarn and the clovers and now the clip, or the shawl pin. Yeah, I'm really excited to start wearing this. You can even wear it in your hair apparently, although I'd be worried it would fall out and I wouldn't notice. But perhaps over a hair tie or something. I've got very thick hair, so it probably wouldn't fit over my hair. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with this. It's simple, but delicate, fits in with everything, but still a statement. I just think it's the perfect shawl clip. The symmetry really appeals to me as well. And I like to lean into a bit of my heritage every so often. So yeah, we've got that. I was really lucky that Tegan first of all saw these and then wanted to buy one for both of us. And that was something I'd had in my eye on for a few years, but could never justify the cost. But that was a Lantern Moon sheepy tape measure. I mean, you can never have too many tape measures, but geez, isn't this just so cute? They came in, I think, white, black and grey. And we decided to go with the grey because the white would get dirty and the black is black. And yeah, we got 2 grey sheets and I just love it. It's a bit of a sensory thing too. I know a lot of neurodivergent people don't like the feeling of fleece, like polar fleece, and that kind of thing, but I don't mind it, just having different textures to play with. So yeah, I'm really thrilled to have this, and I need a name. I need a name for him or her. So if you've got any ideas, just pop them in the comments below. Yeah. How did we get to 5 days later and I haven't got a name for them? Oh. No, they even have their own little home that they live in. A nice little bag, little lace bag, so we can still breathe. And but the moths can't get to him. So yeah. Lastly, I was really lucky to be organised enough to get a VIP ticket to the show. And so what that included was a free coffee voucher, which I ended up giving away to someone at a cafe because I was heading off back to Sydney, but also I don't drink coffee. I might have a decaf once in a while, but I don't really love coffee. And it also included a couple of other little things. It had this little stitch marker from JoJo's Art Studio, made from polymer clay, and that's a cutie. I quite like that birdie. I don't like birds generally, but that one's cute. It also came with a hand cream. So it says it's hydrating hand cream with organic essential oils of sweet orange and patchouli, leaving us feeling like there's no place like home. But I haven't opened it. Shall we open it and see if we like the smell? That's the first thing. Creams and me, we don't really go well together. Ooh, right. Yeah, so that's quite strong. For me, like, insight to a neurodivergent's life, if it's not the smell, it's going to be the feel. And if it's not the feel, it's the way that it feels afterwards, how it soaks in. Does it cause itch? Does it cause irritation? I've got sensitive skin. It's a maybe. I'll get back to you with a report on how this goes when I pluck up enough courage to give it a go and I don't need to use my hands in case there's an issue. I wonder if the smell will linger as well, or if it will dissipate quite quickly. I mean, I think I've probably gone through 400 or 500 different creams over the years, and I've finally settled on one that doesn't bother me to use for my face cream. This might be gifted to a friend, but it was a lovely thought, and I appreciate where they were coming from with that, because your hands do sometimes need to be moisturised when you're working with yarns, I find. The next thing that we got was a little sample of herbal tea, and this is definitely something that I will enjoy because I do love my herbal teas. And this is called the Cleopatra Skin and Beauty Blend, and it's got chamomile, dandelion, calendula, red clover, nettle, rose, cinnamon, alfalfa, and elderberries in it. And that's a nice single serve. Sorry about the fibres. So yeah, it looks quite nice, as you can see at the back. So I will definitely be tucking into that. And it's a plastic container, I think, but it's got a cork top, and I think this could be reused afterwards to hold stitch markers or little bits and pieces in it, which would also look really cool. So yeah. And then lastly, we got this little sticker from Obsession Yarns, which is always nice. I do love cats and I do love yarn. So there we go. So that is my acquisitions. Let's talk about plans. What are my plans? You know that expression, you make plans and God laughs? Yeah, I feel like for me, it's I make plans and my ADHD mind just forgets. So what I do instead is I basically try and keep my wits around me so I remember what I've got going on. And it's pretty funny though, because often I'll forget what's in the bag. And so I'll open it up, go, oh, I forgot I had that. But basically my plans are to keep going with what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm definitely going to finish the Micaela sweater, the Cardiff Cashmere brush light Micaela sweater. And I'm definitely going to keep working on the Frida headband. That's my going everywhere project. And then after I've done that, I'm going to have to look at what is next as far as deadlines, because I've got a few obligations that I need to fulfill with yarn that's been gifted to me for various things for Yarnacopia. So I will be looking for patterns and trying to plan out what I'm going to do with that yarn that I've been gifted, that I will show to you next podcast when I've got a bit of a firmer idea of what I'm doing. But yeah, I think that's all for now. Thanks for joining me. If you've made it this far, like everyone says, wow, I'm impressed. I hope that you found some value in what I've discussed with you today, and I really look forward to catching up with you next time. So might be time to say bye now, but it won't be long and we'll see each other again. Okay, bye.